Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Wouldn't It Be Fun? I'm Amy Snell, and you can find me here on Zoom and YouTube Live the first Friday of every month at 4 Pacific, 7 Eastern. You can also find me on Instagram and Twitter as Devious Knitter and on my blog at deviousknitter.com. I am joined this month by my guest, Christine Walker of Peacetree Fiber and Yoga Adventures.
Hello, everybody.
Christine is the president and owner of Peacetree Fiber and Yoga Adventures and an avid knitter with a passion for all things fiber. She's been a devoted attendee of the Knitting and Yoga Adventures retreats before taking over the helm last year from longtime owner Lisa B. Evans. I'm just going to make sure to pause everybody except me and Christine so we don't get any background noise. And then I'm really excited to talk to you, Christine, and hear a lot more about these retreats.
Thank you for having me. This is so cool. I'm super excited to be here. I'm excited to be with everybody. I'm kind of trying to just adjust.
Oh. Christine, I'm sorry.
I'm muted. That's
I'm
nice.
sorry. I muted. I thought I wasn't going to mute you, but it muted you along with everybody else. So
I'm just talking.
So please start over again.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. I'm just trying to figure out how I can see some of the other people. Oh, hey, Michelle Bernstein.
So if you put gallery view on, you should be able to see everybody.
Yeah, I do now.
I have the two of us spotlighted for the recording.
Yes. Wonderful. Thank you. Yay. So yes, thank you for having me, everybody. I'm Christine Walker, as Amy just said. I'm in snowy Buffalo, New York right now. And we're supposed to get a storm. I don't know. Who knows?
So Christine, talk to me about how you came to own the Peacetree Fiber and Yoga Adventures.
Yeah, it's kind of a funny story. So I'd been going to the retreats for several years. I've been going to the Vermont retreat. We'll talk about where they kind of are, but I've been going to the Vermont retreat. And I kind of was always thinking like, this would be such a cool community to be a part of. It would be really neat to do something within this community. And I was like, what could I do? I work full time. I have a husband, I have kids, whatever. I was like, what could I do? Well, could I dye yarn? I don't think I have the time or, whatever for that. Could I be a designer? Can I churn stuff out fast and sell it on Etsy? Probably not. So I started to think, well, someday the retreats seem cool, So then one day I work in the software industry in my regular life. And I was with a client in Indianapolis and I'm having dinner. I come out of dinner and there's like 20 text messages on my phone. And I was like, oh my God, what is going on? What is happening? So I check my phone and all my knitting buddies are like freaking out. Lisa sent the email. Lisa, the previous owner, sends the email that says, this Vermont is going to be my last retreat. I'm a ceramic artist. I really want to focus on that. And I need to, go to my passion and do my ceramics art. And she's a beautiful pottery. So everyone's freaking out. And I send her a message and I'm like, are you selling your business? And so she was. So it moved pretty quickly from there. And I bought it. That was in November of 2019. So we immediately became non-viable in our current state. So I have not had one retreat in person since. So it's been a struggle and a challenge, but a lot of good has come out of it as well. So that's why I came to be the owner.
And then you've pivoted. You had to pivot really clearly to stay in business.
I sure did. So it became obvious pretty quickly so I took over the business in November of 2019. That was the last in-person retreat. The next retreat was already scheduled for April of 2020. So obviously that never happened. And it was one of those things where, if you guys remember, in the beginning of the pandemic, you were like, oh, we'll close for a couple of weeks, you know? And so we moved it a couple times, and, then obviously everything was just a disaster like it's been. So I thought to myself, why don't I just do virtual? And I had a retreat scheduled in September of 2020, thinking, oh, maybe we can get to September. Obviously, we can't get to September. And then I thought, you know what? Those instructors said, yeah, we'll teach virtual. I said, then you know what? I'm not waiting. I'm just going to start doing it in June of last year. So I get my first couple of people signed up, and we did it in June of last year. And I was like, I can do this. So I've done virtual classes every month since, except December. I took December off because, holidays and whatever. So I've done it every month. I still work full time. I still have a family, but what option is there? And I just want to continue to keep the community together. I know, it's entirely possible right now that people feel isolated and alone, and I hardly go out myself. I work from home. So I think it's wonderful to just have that, even if it's for a couple hours. Change your mind, change your situation, maybe learn something new, maybe, have a laugh, make a friend, whatever. That was the goal. Yeah. And I've met amazing people, and who can't be grateful for that.
Yeah. Well, I think, these events, these online events, are such an important part of staying connected and avoiding isolation. Mm-hmm. But it's been really interesting to see that out of that has come opportunity for people who maybe could not travel for one reason or another, whether that's financial or mobility and accessibility, that now they can participate in these things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, what's nice about it is that it's like a way for people to try it on for size. Mm-hmm. Like, do they like doing a class? And I know virtual can be a bit of a struggle in terms of, I've heard people say, I'm not sure I can pay attention for that long. And I'm not sure, I'm going to get enough out of it, just not having somebody in front of you. And, it depends on the way you learn and that sort of thing. So, I think it provides different things for different people, and it remains accessible and affordable. And you know what else that I super duper dig about it is that I've had instructors from England, mm-hmm. Alberta, Canada, different things. I'm not going to meet those people. Amy, I wouldn't have met you likely.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
So that's been very exciting, because a lot of the retreats of the business that I took over, which was called Knitting and Yoga Adventures, and I changed it to Peacetree Fiber Adventures, in the hopes that we would maybe do other things, later, sewing or weaving, or who knows, right? We can do whatever we want. So those retreats had all been in New England, just because that's where they were. There was no reason for that. Lisa, the previous owner, lived in Maine, and who doesn't want to go to New England in the fall? It's beautiful. So it was one of those things where the opportunity to branch out just lent itself to me and my personality. So my whole entire career, I'm almost 52 years old. I've been working for a very long time, and my whole career has been customer facing entirely. My mother was a businesswoman. I worked for her. It's always been about providing an experience and taking care of people. So I was like, well, this retreat thing's like way up in my wheelhouse, So, and it meant so much to me. The feeling I got the first time I went to a retreat, and the other women that were there, it was just a feeling that I have trouble putting words to, in terms of feeling like I'm home. This is my tribe. These are my people. Immediately felt that. And I want to bring that to other people.
Yeah. Now, your festival, your retreats are these smaller, sort of more intimate experiences than the big festivals are. And I'd love to hear you kind of talk to that a little bit. How's that different from some of the, the experience of attending this little retreat, even virtually, is different from going to a big festival, even virtually?
Yeah. I do think that either virtual or in person is just much more intimate. in that, I mean, if you've been to fiber festivals, especially if you've been to Rhine, I mean, it is like, it is in your face, not in a bad way, but it's crazy, right? So I think that the knitting retreats, whether it's virtual, whether it's in person, are just much more intimate. It's an opportunity to share a little bit more, an opportunity to get to know people a little bit more. What's nice about it is that you're all learning the same thing. You're all hearing the same thing. What's really great about it is that, and this happens less on virtual, but more, not, that's not even totally true, but there are people that come to the classes or come to the in-person retreats that are better knitters than we could ever hope to be. I mean, they could do anything. They come for the community and everyone learns something, and what's great is that if you're more of a beginner, the people who are better knitters help the other people. So, and even for me, I'm not an expert knitter. I'm a good knitter. I'm not a great knitter. I don't think I'm pretty good though. But even on one of my classes, like something blows my mind, whether it was taking the needle, the needles with the cable, and to put in a lifeline, you stick a piece of dental floss through that hole and knit around in a circle. Hello. I didn't know that. That was awesome. I totally did that. Yeah. So I think it's great. And, I had never done brioche before. And Michelle, who's on the call, taught beginner brioche for us. And I'm like, this is so cool. So I think it's just a great way to dip your toe into, learning new things in the virtual way, less of an investment, but in the in-person way, it's very much like a self-care kind of thing to do.
So tell me about this adventure part of the name of the retreats. What's that for?
Yeah, what is the adventure? So I think the adventure can be, honestly, I was thinking about this a lot because I did know you were going to talk to me about this question. I will be forthcoming about that. So I did actually think about it quite a bit. And what I think is very interesting is that the adventure can be whatever you need it to be, whether it's travel in a place you've never been, whether it's new people that you don't know. Some people come to the retreats alone. It's not like everyone comes in with a pal or in a group, and so it's new people, it's learning new techniques and like opening yourself up to that. What can I learn and what can I give? And how does this make me better? And also, I think it's an adventure for a lot of, when I went to my very first retreat, the reason I went to that retreat was because I'd been online or something and I had seen that I had missed a fiber festival that was in Western New York. And I was like, oh, that sounds fun. Oh, bummer, I missed that. So I start Googling like fiber festivals and I stumble across this retreat in Vermont. So I call my friend Ann and I'm like, Ann, there's a retreat in Vermont and we should go and you should go with me and we should just go. And she's like, yeah, that sounds cool. So we went and so we planned it like a year in advance. And then when we went, the week we were supposed to go, my family stupidly got another dog. So we have two dogs and they don't like each other. And my husband comes down with a raging case of shingles, like so bad on his head. It was awful. So I call his mother and I'm like, your son has shingles and I'm going to Vermont. And she was like, okay, we'll help it out here. But I had, that was maybe, it wasn't that many years ago, but my kids were like in high school and middle school. And I was just like, you know what? I've been everyone's wife and mother for a super duper long time. And I'm giving this to myself now. And I'm investing in myself, So I think it's a little bit of that adventure to feel like you're at that point where you can, I think some people almost feel like they have to write themselves permission to spend that kind of money on themselves, take that time away from their families. But I really think it's made me better in a lot of ways, like just the people that I know and the people that I've come into contact with and the things that I've learned. So I think there's a lot of adventure and it's the adventure that you need.
That's great. So I'd love to hear more about the yoga side of things. Now, I know knitting, but I am not a yogi.
Yeah.
So what's the connection there between knitting and yoga?
Yeah. So I think for me, well, let me just say that the retreats are very knitting centric. Knitting is the main jam. Yoga is a nice thing to do in the morning before you get your day started. And I think what's nice about it, I am more of a practitioner of yoga, like not consistently or great, but I mean, I've done it more. And I find that yoga oftentimes, and if you ever do yoga and you do yoga that's like a flow, it's like a moving meditation. And I think we all feel at some point that knitting is kind of meditative. I find crochet to be very meditative. But so there's that repetitive factor of doing things over and just doing it and getting in a groove and just like, we all know that, especially when you're doing garter and you're just, it's very calming and centering. And I think the yoga is the same way. Now, another thing that I think is that yoga, I kind of lost my train of thought there, but it's this mind body connection, right? So everything that we're doing with knitting, everything that we're doing with yoga, you have to have that mind body connection and that, centering kind of thing. So I think they really complement each other very well. And especially and the yoga that we do at the retreats, believe me, is you don't even break a sweat. I mean, it's just very nice and relaxing and put the parts back together. Because you know how when we're knitting, and even though we're kind of like in a groove and you're cruising along, do you ever find like you're like becoming like an O? And absolutely. I knit to the left. Like I'll notice that I'm like over here knitting. Like I knit to the left. So I just think that yoga helps to get that all back together, and I have problems with my neck. I get super stiff in my neck and the whole thing. So someone said they knit to the right, right?
Yeah.
I knit to the left. So, I think it just helps to get everything back in track. And it's just a nice way to start your day. If you want to do it, do it. If you don't, sleep. Who cares? I mean, it's like, it's your weekend and you get to do what you want to do.
And I'm really excited about this. I'm going to try, I try to try all the things, especially
yes.
the things that's
I agree. Yes. I'm not like going out on a ledge or anything like that's glass. Right. No, but lots of other things I try. Yeah.
I'm really excited to do that. I mean, you've got this retreat coming up in February, the 19th to the 21st.
Yes.
I'm super excited. I'm going to be one of your teachers, and yes. Tanis Gray is going to be the other one. And it's going to be all about all different kinds of color work. Between us, we're teaching 4 different kinds of color work, which is super. Yeah. But I'm also really kind of excited about the yoga and to see, because I know where I knit, I hunch, I get, I get tense in my back and my shoulders, and I have to reposition and stretch and things like that.
And especially when you're on Zoom.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just so everyone's clear, we do yoga on the virtual classes too. So we have a resident yoga instructor. Her name's Isabel. She hops on at the end of class and we just do like 10 or 15 minutes in the chair. It's great. I thought it would be, to be honest, I was like not totally sure on the yoga in the beginning, but then when we started doing it, I was like, this is great. 10, 15 minutes.
Wait to try it out.
Yeah. It's, and again, turn your I say to everybody, stay on, hop off, turn your camera off, mm-hmm. Do whatever. And it is nice. And she tailors it to like, if we have a 6 to 8 class, which we do, she'll do something like super chill, like almost like getting you ready for bed type of restorative, little stretchy, and especially a lot with the hands and shoulders. And then sometimes during the day, she'll do a little bit more, I don't want to call it active because it's still in the chair, but it's just, a little bit more active, I guess is the word, but it's fun.
And is it all suitable for knitters that don't do yoga or haven't had yoga experience before?
No, absolutely. So easy. And Isabel is, she's more like our age, and she got into yoga instruction later, so she's very attuned to the things that women more of our age may like or need or whatever, which is good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is
and
good.
And I know that you try to make these retreats really personal. You are on
Yes.
there during the classes and things like that. And what else is, what else is unique about that experience, about the experience at your retreats?
I really think that, you know, you can tell that I'm an extroverted person. I'm like one of those people that would talk to anybody and tell you all about my life and listen to your life and the whole thing. And that's just my normal way of being. And I, because the retreats, let me tell you this. When I worked for an orthodontist for a lot of years and I managed his practice, and it was a big practice, and and sometimes the instructors would not instructors, the technicians and stuff might, a kid could be having a bad day and the kid's crabby, or maybe the kid's crabby all the time and different things. And this one doctor that I worked for was just so friendly to every single kid that was in the chair, just like, and ask about their day and this thing. And people would ask him, like, my God, that kid is always miserable. Like, what, how do you even, and he'd go, how do you not know that this isn't the best part of their day? What if they don't, what if no one else talks to them like this? Or, so, you know what I mean? Just, can you imagine, So that's what I like to do with the virtual classes is the reason we don't have like 40 classes in a weekend is because I'm on every one of them. So I am on every single one. I let everybody in. I say hello to everybody. I answer the chats. I, ask the questions if people are too shy to, or just don't want to speak up or whatever. They'll type me a chat, and do it. And I think that's my, going back to my roots of just personal attention. And I want everyone to feel welcome. I want everyone to feel included and comfortable. And whether you learn one darn thing about knitting or you don't, I want you to just have a good 2 hours. And life is too hard right now to not, to not just be able to have a couple good hours, right?
Yeah.
So
I think that's a real help as a teacher. I know having someone there who's acting almost as a concierge or
yes,
troubleshooting is huge because as a teacher, I'm focused on the material. I'm trying to
right,
check in with the students. I'm looking, making sure everyone can see what I'm demonstrating on the camera. And I can't always monitor the chat at the same time.
exactly.
That can be a little tricky. And it's just so much more helpful to have someone else in the room who is monitoring that kind of thing.
Yeah, I can imagine that would be only because then you get those people that are like, I don't have the PDF. I don't have the, you know what I mean? And I can
Yeah,
like, I
yeah,
just shoot it to them right away. And, like I said in the beginning, I work in the software industry. So I'm quite computer literate. So I don't have issues with, just someone has something. I'm like, boom, boom, boom,
yeah.
I had one woman, she couldn't, I sent her a bunch of, I'll send out the class handouts and the PDFs and stuff. And she sent me a message. She's like, I can't print them. My my printer won't work. I'm like, you know what? I'm sticking them in the mail for you. And I priority mailed them to her, and she had her handouts.
Yeah,
I mean,
nice.
there's no need to get worked up over any of this stuff. I'm going to make sure that, that you're well taken care of. So I think it's that, Amy, like you're saying, it's just that like personal, attention. It's community. People are starting to get to know each other. And when we have classes, there's a decent amount of people on there that I know personally just because they're my friends and they're supporting me. But there's starting to be more and more people that I don't know personally. And I love that because I'm starting to get repeat people and I'm starting to be like, oh, hey, and people will send me pictures of what they made and things like that. And I love that.
Yeah.
I love it. And it's just warmer that I get top-notch teachers. I get top-notch teachers to come. Michelle was great when she was there. Everyone loved that too. And, it's
Yeah,
a lot. It's a lot of goodness. It's a lot of good things.
I think that's one of the nice things too about the size of your retreat and the fact that you offer multi-class discounts. I'm sure that you have people doing multiple classes over the course of the weekend, and because they don't conflict with each other, people are
Right.
more likely to see. Oh, I had it. She was in. Oh, those four people were in my same class yesterday,
Yes.
and so
Yes, you're
the
right.
faces become familiar.
Yeah. And yes, that's an excellent point that I hadn't really thought about because some of the other retreats, obviously there's, or virtual class weekends, there's a bazillion instructors and a bazillion classes, and that's all awesome. But obviously I can't do that because I'm not giving up that personal. I can't be on, you know, I can be on 5 classes. I can't be on, 14 classes. So, and that's important to me, I think, just because of the nature of I would find it, well, maybe because I'm a control freak too, probably, but I wouldn't I want to make sure it's right. And if something's not right, I'm the one that's going to take care of it and make it right.
It's very clear that this is a real personal project for you, that being part of it personally has a huge value for you. And I think that's got to come through to everybody who comes to the retreats, that, it becomes clear that you're taking a really personal interest.
I hope so. I mean, I hope that comes through. Someone was just asking Julie how many people in her class. It could be, I've had as many as 22 or 23. I've had as few as 6. I mean, like, I'm having the class, whether it's a lot of people or it's not a lot of people. I'm not making $1 million off these virtual classes. I mean, just not that that's neither here nor there, but I just want you to understand that I'm not doing it for that reason. That would be nice. But I mean, I'm not doing it for that reason. I'm doing it to keep things going. And, so it's nice when it's 6 or 7 or 8, because it's even more personal, and people are very comfortable to be like, holding their thing up to the camera, what did I do? That's that sort of thing. And the times where it's been, 20 or 25, that's been fine too. Because I just monitor it very well. And usually you're looking at speakers anyways, so you don't have that, it's not like the person's this big in the square, and you're trying to figure that all out. So in a in-person retreat, just so everybody knows, typically it's like not more than 25. There's one that's big, that's Knit Maine, that got postponed again for this year, but that's in Deer Isle, Maine. It was way up in Maine, and that would be like 85 people, but it's like we take over the whole venue, which is a pretty cool, neat venue.
So tell me a little bit more about what you have coming up, because I know, unfortunately, you've had to postpone some other things, but you also have some more virtual events coming, right?
Yeah. So we have February, which Amy said. So we have Amy and Tanis Gray for February, which is super cool. And then we have Ancestral Fiber Company, Fiber Co., who is like the yarn sponsor. So I'm going to give away yarn of hers in every class. And then we just started this in January, but we did a little meet the maker hour, and it was really cool. I didn't know how it was going to be. We did it with moss fibers in January, and we just hopped on Zoom for an hour on Saturday evening. Well, it was Saturday evening Eastern, and we hopped on. She showed us all her yarn. We chatted. We learned about her inspiration, things like that. We're going to do the same with Adeya from Ancestral Fiber Co., which will be super fun. And then in March, we have Shayna Bilo, and she's teaching Entrelac, which is this shawl right here is an example of, and I made that. And mattress stitch, which Shayna is a professional finisher, so I'm sure that will be a good class. And I think that stitch has boggled some of us, and I'm quite sure I can learn a nicer way to do it. So she's going to do that. And then Ellen Deckers, and if you've never heard of Ellen Deckers, her Instagram is Bipolevie. I don't know if I'm saying that right. It's Pollevie. She lives in Holland. It's crochet. It's going to be a 5-hour workshop for crochet. And if you have never seen her designs, oh my God, they are colorful and just zany and just unbelievably neat and cool. And so she's going to teach us all those techniques to make our own and design our own. So we're going to do a like a bag or a basket cover for that. And then Keith Leonard, who's Yarn Snobs, is going to be the sponsor for that. So that's what we have in terms of what I have virtually scheduled already. My April retreat just got moved to June. So who knows? And then we're going to September. We're still having September, just not in Maine. That's going to be in Amherst, Mass. And then November in Vermont. Oh my God, I just ripped out my earbuds. Then November in Vermont. And then next year will be probably Cape Ann again, which is the one in June this year. So Cape Ann, Mass. So that's right on the ocean. Vermont's every year in November. Maine, somebody asked, that's in probably Labor Day weekend of 2022. I do not have the date yet. I have to wait for them to give me the date, but it's probably Labor Day weekend. That is about 7 instructors, plus vendors, plus the amazing Haystack Mountain School of Crafts, which if you don't know what that is, it's like a dedicated artisan community. It's pretty cool. And Buffalo next year in May.
Great. Yeah. So people are commenting. They're really looking forward to some of those.
Yeah.
It's going to be great.
We hope to have Amy come to one and teach in person.
That would be amazing. Oh. I really, really looking forward to getting to actually go be in person in different places and meet knitters in person and look over their shoulders when they're knitting and be able to see everything really clearly. Although, again, I've said before, there are some things that have been easier on Zoom. I know everyone can see my hands really well. And
that is nice.
That's going to change and influence how I teach in person going forward. I can make use of a lot of the same technology, even when we're in the classroom. And that,
do you think you would still use like the document camera, like to project your hands, even in a live situation? Do you think that would be nice?
For most techniques, I think it's easier for people to see, depending on what it is we're teaching. But I think most classes I would. Now, not every venue can do that, right? And if we're, if we're out in a place that doesn't have, I don't know, internet, or something, then
right.
Okay, then we know how to teach the old way too. Sure, right. but I think
that is nice though.
Yeah. If I can have just a document camera or my iPad or something and a electronic projector, and we have a blank wall, then people can really see what I'm doing up close, and then I can walk around the room and see what they're doing. So we get the best of both worlds, hopefully.
Yeah. What else do you find challenging about Zoom, or rewarding, whatever?
I think one of the hard things about doing the virtual classes is people aren't always brave to show you what they're working on. And if someone's having a problem, sometimes they don't, as you mentioned, they don't want to bother the teacher. They don't want to interrupt. Right. I beg people to interrupt me when I'm teaching if it's not clear, because it's always, that you're never the only one, right. Or that it didn't make sense to you the way I said it, or you're half a row behind and I need to go back. I just beg people to stop and interrupt me, because I can't look at them and see, are they all getting it? And so I do try to look, sometimes I look in the camera and I'm, okay, is everyone looking down at their work, or are they looking up because they've finished and we're at the same place? But I have to remember to prompt and ask people, will you hold it up and show me? Okay. And instead of asking if anybody has questions, I try to ask, what are the questions? Because there are always questions.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. And I do think that, and maybe people, I think with Zoom, maybe it helps people to, break out of their shell a little, if they can't see you, or they can't, you can turn your camera off. You feel, I don't know. I hope that it makes people feel that way, kind of. I know that some people, I'm on Zoom constantly, or Teams, because of my work and because of this. So I don't have a problem with much. You've probably gathered that about so far. But, I do hope that it gives people, confidence, whether it's confidence in their skills, confidence in their technology savviness. I mean, a lot of people maybe aren't that awesome on Zoom or whatever. So I try to be like, I've always said to people, if you don't think you can do it, I'll practice with you. I'll set up a Zoom with you and make sure you know what you're doing. You can't just assume that that's comfortable for people, and, telling people to mute when their dogs are barking and, things like that. But I just think I never thought it was something that was going to be happening. Right. So
Yeah.
It's definitely helped. I mean, I'm sure everyone's had coffee with their friends on Zoom or cocktail hour with their friends on Zoom. And I mean, it doesn't replace it, but God, can you imagine if we didn't have this?
Oh yeah, I've said that out loud. If this were
Good
20 years
Lord.
ago,
Oh,
the absence of connectivity in the form that we do have, I think
mm-hmm.
it just would have been so brutal. Not that this has been
So
brutal,
brutal.
it could have been a lot worse.
Definitely could have been a lot
And this is
worse.
something, it sure we all had a learning curve and we all had to ramp up, and we get used to it. And now it's a skill that we have and it's something we know how to do, most of us.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you said, it could have been a whole lot worse.
So, Christine, I would love to
Yes.
hear if you have had any unexpected experiences at any of your retreats that you've been involved with.
I don't think I did myself. I was trying to think. Nothing like horrible or weird that happened when I was there. I hope nothing weird ever happens when I'm there. But one time with Lisa, well, two things happened. There's this one retreat that they have sometimes on Monhegan Island in Maine, which is like you got to go again way up in Maine, and you're gonna take a boat and you got to get onto this island. So it's like being on Martha's Vineyard or whatever. And this one, I guess some woman just jumped in the lake like with all her clothes on, and they were like, "Oh my God, like you could, or not lake, it's an ocean." Just jumped in with all her clothes on, and they were like, "Oh my God," from like a liability standpoint and everything. And then another time, somebody had a medical issue and they had to come with a helicopter.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's scary.
And take her off the island. So, I mean, I hope that never happens. But no, I haven't had anything weird. I'm really thinking now. I think if there was something weird, I would remember. I was just trying to think if there was something like really noteworthy. But one thing that we did one time that was super fun that you wouldn't necessarily be like, oh, let's go do that, is the retreat that's in Vermont. It's in Quechee, Vermont. And we stay at the Quechee Inn at Marshland Farm, which is super cute. And King Arthur Baking is right there. So the one year we went and took a baking class. And we made holiday cookies that we got to take with us. So, I mean, that was great. I'm down for cookies anytime.
That's really fun. See,
It
that's
was
an
fun.
adventure.
Yes. Yes, exactly. So I think we're going to do that the next time we go to, we would have done that this year in Vermont. Yes. Quechee is amazing. Yes. Someone's saying that. I love Quechee. Love it.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Probably go live there.
So I would love to hear if our guests have some questions for you.
Yeah.
I've loved the comments. We've had some great comments coming along in the chat.
I'll answer anything. So
yeah. And Michelle asked if the main retreat was going to be open in 2022, which I think you did answer. You said you're planning for it, right?
Well, yes, and that whole deal has been, not to say that I'm not taking all the precautions I need to take. I certainly am, but in that particular instance, it was Haystack's decision. They decided they are doing no in-person programming this whole year for 2021. I think Michelle just said, will I continue virtual? Yeah, I mean, I think I would, because I think, again, it's accessible pretty much. And I did have someone comment to me one time that she is challenged with mobility. And this was really the only way that she would be able to participate. And I really felt good about that. So I do like that. And from a cost perspective, it's certainly more affordable than a retreat. And I don't see why I wouldn't do it. I mean, because I really like it. Yeah. So why wouldn't I?
It
I think.
seems, if I had to guess, I would imagine that from an organizational perspective, that doing virtual retreats is less work. Not it, certainly, maybe it's not much less work, but it seems like it'd be at least a little bit less work, and then you yourself aren't traveling to attend them.
Right, right. So I do think it's a little less work. I think what took me by surprise is that when I thought I was buying a turnkey business. She'd been in business for 17 years, very loyal following, 3 retreats a year full. I'm like, great, this is an awesome part-time gig that, I can do when I'm retired and yay. And then, no, and that's not what's happening. So, it's right now, it's a lot more than what I expected, but not in a bad way. Mm-hmm. So some of you, if you've seen other interviews that I've done, one of my mantras is, how hard can it be? So this is what I say about everything. So, and not to imply that something is easy, like things are hard. I get that. But I'm like, well, somebody can do it. You know what I mean? So like, if I need to tile a bathroom, I learn how to tile that bathroom and I tile that bathroom. If I need to, learn how to do this stitch or that stitch, or I need to learn how to, tile the floor, paint my cabinet, I'm going to learn, because how hard can it be? People do it. I can do it, So it's more about knowing and having confidence in myself and strength, knowing my inner strength, that I'm going to give it a go. Like, what's the worst thing that can happen? The tile looks like crap. I mean, like what? I mean, like it doesn't look like crap for the record, but so it's just one of those things. Look, I'm always like, well, how hard can it be? So I feel like that gives me like a little bit of a push to not be scared,
Yeah.
Or to give it a go. Give it a go, Yeah. What's the worst thing?
It's a great attitude. Yeah.
So give it a go. Yes.
You mentioned that you had a lot of people that were loyal retreat attendees that were going to all of these retreats every year, all 3 retreats, and they were sold out. Has that changed with this move to virtual? Do you have new people now? Is it still your people that used to come?
Yeah, so it's funny because actually not a lot of the people that have gone that I have met at the retreats that were like repeat attendees come to the virtual. They're like not that down with virtual. They'll come here and there or not at all. That's fine. It's not for everybody. They're not everybody is about the 2-hour Zoom. They're about the weekend long. This is so awesome. Girl power weekend. Not that men couldn't be there, but you know what I mean? Like it's just so nice to just be all together. So they don't. I've met a lot more people. There's been a lot more newer people. And every time, obviously we have different instructors. I might meet someone through you, Amy, or through Michelle or any other instructor that we have teach. And I love that because I feel like obviously it's more exposure to different types of people and different, around the country or whatever. But I do think it's nice because there have been people on the classes that didn't even know a knitting and yoga retreat existed, or any kind of retreat where you could go away for a whole weekend and knit for the whole time. And like you don't feel bad about not doing your laundry or whatever, like you're there to knit. So, that was eye-opening in that, and which shouldn't be because I just stumbled upon it too. But, where people were like, oh my God, this was so cool. I can't wait to go to one in person now because I know it's fun and I learned and it wasn't too hard and it wasn't, weird or difficult. And so I think that's really nice. And I think people will be so anxious to get out when they can.
Yeah.
I think so. I went to Massachusetts last week just because I went to see that one hotel in Amherst, which is lovely. And I got a COVID test. I drove straight there. just stopped to go to the bathroom, brought food, and I felt good. I felt very safe. Now, I want to be with 25 people there now? Probably not. I mean, I don't want to screw it up this close to vaccine time, you know? I mean, so hopefully,
Yeah,
cross all the things.
hopefully. Oh gosh, hopefully.
Yes,
Yes.
hopefully. So,
Well,
we'll see. And I'd love to do some more stuff later with like maybe knitting clubs at schools and stuff like that. You've done stuff with kids, right,
I
Amy?
have, yeah, I love working with kids and teaching the knitting to the kids. Um, I've
Do you do like
done
high school or younger? Or,
all ages.
oh,
I've done kids as young as 6. And
wow.
yeah, and they can do it. I usually get them bigger needles to start and a little bit bigger yarn because the immediate gratification with them is so great. But then I've done middle schoolers, and they're capable of absolutely everything, and they're
Yeah.
so quick to learn. They just they absolutely they'll go with the tiny needles and the tiny yarn, and they want to see anything. Usually I would be in the knitting club, and I would usually have a project that I was working on, and I'd be walking around the knitting club, and the kids would all be different, working on different things that they were interested in, and we had resources and books and patterns and lots of different things. So invariably, whatever it was that I had brought to work on for myself, that was just the project I was working on, the kids would want to know how to do that technique or that type of thing. If it's a sweater and I'm knitting in the round, well, wait, I don't know how to do the in the round, or why are you doing it in the round? Or, I don't know that kind of decrease, or what is this? Well,
Right.
that's I chord. Then I wind up showing everybody how to do I chord that day
I
because
love that.
I just happen to be knitting on something that they don't already know. And they're
Yeah.
so ready to absorb new information.
Yeah. That's
Kids of all ages.
great.
That's
Yeah.
as true as the 6 year olds as it is of the high schoolers.
Yeah.
But I found, the middle school knitting club was really, really close to my heart because at the time I got into doing it, I had middle schoolers. Now my kids
Oh,
were
okay.
not interested in knitting at all, but I was hanging
Mine too.
out with all these kids. They're 11 to 13 years old, and they don't talk to their parents. They don't want to talk to their parents at that age, but they really are hungry for adult attention.
Mm,
And any adult who's there willing to spend time winds up hearing a lot about what's actually going on in their lives and in their minds.
mhm,
And so that particular group of kids, I don't know if it's the age, maybe the age, maybe they're just really hard social dynamics when you're a middle schooler, but they all just really, really seem to want to get close to an adult who shows an interest who's not mom or dad.
mhm. It's interesting too that you say that. A couple of years ago, it was before I had the business. Um, I don't know how it even happened that this woman contacted me. I cannot remember now, but I live in a suburb of Buffalo, but my office is in the city of Buffalo. And this woman was a speech pathologist at an inner city school, like 5 minutes away. So somehow I got connected with her to donate a bunch of yarn. And because the Vermont knitters in the retreat, when we usually go to Vermont, everyone brings like their stuff, and it's like you put it and then you take other, like, so it's like a trade, and whatever's left I took, and I was like, well, I'll donate it. So I don't know how, anyways, I get hooked up with Tracy, and she says, so I give her all this yarn, and she's got this little yarn club, and they were fourth graders. So whatever, 9, 10, something like that. Maybe they were, I can't remember, fourth or fifth grade. So I said, well, can I come to the club? Is that something that they would let me do? And she's like, yeah, we have it every 6th day, and it's like at 12:30 and whatever. So I go, yeah, I'll just zip over from work. So I would go and I would help her out. And there was like 5 or 6 kids, and they were just basically knitting squares or rectangles, or, just kind of getting the techniques down and stuff. And then she said, well, I said, I'll come whenever you have it if I can, like if I don't have a meeting or something. So she said, oh, that's great. And I would go, and the kids were just, it was just so neat. And this one little girl, she was 9 years old. And the one day I had brought like a bunch of my stuff. She says, can you bring stuff that you've made so they get a sense of like what can happen? I go, sure. So I bring all a bunch of stuff that I've made and I show them and they're all oohing and eyeing over it and stuff like that. So this little girl, we're walking out and she said, "Are you going to come next week?" And I said, "I will come every time as long as I don't have a meeting." And she said, "Well, why would you have a meeting?" And I said, "Well, I have a job that I work at during the day. So, I mean, I can't help that." She goes, so she says to me, she goes, "I'm sure you're good at your job, but I think you're better at knitting and you should just do this." And it made me feel so good. And it was so cute and sweet. And, I'm sure you're good at your job, but, and that kind of just stuck with me. And now seeing, what I've been able to do and accomplish. And that little girl's voice was in the back of my head, I think you're better at knitting.
That's awesome.
It was very cute. And I do agree with you that those kids, it's just, they're hungry for that. And for, yeah, just that adult recognition. And this adult thinks I'm doing something good. And not that their parents wouldn't think that too, maybe, I mean, it's just nice. And then just quickly, my best friend's an art teacher and trying to Zoom art teach because the kids were not in school here. So she taught them to crochet and they've been crocheting. It's a sculpture class. So they've been crocheting and making it into, using it as the basis for the sculpture stuff. And they can't get enough of it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
so I think I'm going to try that in this.
Yeah.
If we go back full time, which we are not right now, trying to get we only have 3 high schools in our area, but trying to get like a tri-school knitting club going that she could sponsor. I think that would be neat.
Yeah. That's wonderful.
Yeah. We'll see if things ever,
So Christine, I am so excited that you very, very generously offered to let me give away a free class at this upcoming retreat later in the month. And I'm so excited about that. And you said it can be either one of my classes, right? It can be the winner's choice of either I'm teaching knit flat brioche with syncopation and I'm also teaching mosaic.
Yes.
So depending on what you want to do. Okay. So that's fantastic. And I'm going to just pull up a little random number generator so that I can get a random number. So everybody bear with me for a minute. And of course, I'll excuse us from the count here.
Yes. And yes, you should clear your calendar. I was just looking through the chats.
Oh.
Anne said she's drivable to a lot of the.
Oh, wonderful.
They're further for me because I'm in Buffalo, but I work it out.
Okay, so I have a winner, and it's Joy Spadafora.
Oh, yay!
You can unmute yourself if you like, Joy.
Yay!
Yeah.
Wow, so, thank you.
You're welcome. So that's what, the 19th and the 20th, Amy?
Yeah, I'm teaching
6 to 8.
Yeah, I'm teaching Friday night the 19th, 6 to 8, and that's the mosaic. That's the introductory mosaic class. And Saturday the 20th, you'll have to remind me the time. I think in the
2:30.
I'm teaching
2:30 Eastern.
Syncopated brioche.
To 4:30, 2:30 to 4:30 Eastern.
Oh yeah, I'm on the East Coast too. So
okay.
I just add 3, Amy.
Right. Christine, should Joy email you directly?
Yeah, how should I get in touch?
Yeah, let me put it in the chat.
Great.
Okay.
Awesome.
So Amy, you said mosaic is the Friday evening.
Yes.
And then what class are you teaching on Saturday?
Saturday afternoon, I'm teaching knit flat brioche with syncopation. So that's kind of a next. It's a little bit of a if you already know brioche. My suggestion is that's a great second class in brioche.
Okay. I taught myself brioche and I've knit one thing, which was flat.
Yeah. So then if you've done it before, you'll be able to keep up with this. It's not going to be crazy out there. It's just sort of the next step. But if you want to do mosaic, I think mosaic is one of the biggest bang for the buck color work techniques you can do.
It's fun.
Think it's super, it's fun and easy and simple. And I teach sort of what the different rules are for doing brioche. We do a sample flat and we do a sample in the round.
Mm-hmm. I'm leaning toward the brioche because mosaic, I was looking at mosaic. I think I could use more help with the brioche.
Okay, great.
But I'll take a look and see the descriptions.
Fantastic. And
yeah,
go ahead.
Christine,
and Michelle.
Okay.
Great.
You got it?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay.
Michelle, thank you for your question about what is syncopation in brioche, because that was a word that went by that probably some people are not familiar with. Syncopation in brioche is when we change the patterning. Let's see. I've got a little bit. I've got some plain brioche here to hand. In most brioche knits, we have a color that shows up light and a color that shows up dark. And when we do syncopation, we swap that so that the dark color would come forward and the light color would recede. And we can do that either vertically, we can go all the way across and then change it, or we can change it within one row so we get some patterning. And that's how you get a lot of really interesting patterning and some of the more advanced brioche patterns. Sorry, I keep saying that word, patterns. To make use of that to get some really cool effects where you get the colors receding and advancing.
I'm excited for that. I think that'll be really cool. I just learned brioche with Michelle Bernstein when she taught for me. And I managed to make the whole headband, which I love. And then I did make one of the hats, Michelle, and I gave it to my friend for her birthday and she loved it. And I even completely goofed up the pattern in the vines. And I was like, well, she'll never know. And it looked fine. So she thought it was neat. So I liked it. I kind of liked it.
Yeah, well, that's how that class decision kind of came along, because you said that Michelle had taught brioche for you guys back in the summer. And I thought, okay, well, maybe some of the students that took that are ready to do something that's just a little bit different, just a little bit kind of the next step. And then you have a little bit more, a few more techniques in your toolbox.
I definitely do like to stagger some of the things too. Like we've done steeking twice, but from two different instructors and a few months apart. Mm-hmm. And who couldn't use steeking just over and over and over again. And we've done color work. The only thing we haven't done really that's coming up is the interlock, which I super duper loved. And I just think it's fun. And it's one of those things where it's just neat and people are so impressed by it. And really, it's not that hard. It's,
I think that's true of many things in knitting. I honestly, I'm not sure that there's anything I've come across yet in knitting that isn't pretty straightforward once you actually know how to do it. Once my head and my hands are synchronized and I can do the motions and I understand why I'm doing the motions, there's nothing in knitting that I've found to be that hard.
And I think don't you think that, or maybe you think this or maybe you don't, but don't you think that the understanding, like I feel like I only learned how to knit when I was 34 years old. So I was not young like a lot of people learn from their grandma. I learned from my grandmother, but I was 34. And I think that, so I've been knitting for like 15, 16, well, I guess 17 or 18 years now. But I really find that the knowing why and how makes life so much easier. And even for myself, I'm knitting a sweater right now. Oh, my arm disappeared. I'm knitting a sweater right now. And I was starting the sleeve and I went around the sleeve and I noticed a drop stitch in color work. And I was like, oh, good Lord. So I just picked it up and I'm like, zoop, 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 laddered it up, stuck it on the needle, no problem. And I thought to myself as I was doing it, and I did it quite quickly, I thought to myself, what in God's name did I think I was doing with this before? Like I was making it so hard, like going from behind, and it was always backwards. But just, it seems like that stuff, even after all these years, is, I would say, only now starting to come more naturally. Does anyone else find that?
I think, for me, the person who taught me how to knit only knew one stitch, and it turned out it was the purl stitch. But I liked it, and I went and I got a book so I could learn the rest of it. And then I came back and I said, oh, that thing you taught me that was knitting is actually purling, but here's what knitting is. And mm-hmm. I kept exploring because I was interested and I was hungry to know more. And I think because I'm self-taught I mean, not self-taught because I didn't come up with knitting out of my head, right? I was book taught. And then I went online and I looked for resources. I always wanted to know, well, why do you do it that way? And I often would say, all right, well, what if I don't do it that way? What if I do it this way instead? What happens then? And that can lead to really horrific things. And it can also lead to learning. And I think this is how new things are invented. We say, okay, well, what if I did this? And there are plenty of things that I said, oh, what if I do it this way? And I figured out how to do it this way. Well, so did Elizabeth Zimmerman. I just didn't happen to look at that book, right? Or that happens all the time. We rediscover things in knitting. And And I think the more, every time I learn something new in knitting, I want to know why. I want to know why the fabric behaves that way. I want to know what it does to the fabric when you treat it, when you manipulate the stitches this way. Because if I have an underlying understanding of what the stitches are doing and why they're there, then it's a lot easier to fix something or to change something. And I always like to change things. That's kind of where the Devious Knitter name came from. I don't think there's ever been a pattern ever that I've knit as written, because I just don't, because I want it my way, because it's my hobby and I can.
Right. Yeah, because you can. Because how hard can it be?
Yeah.
And Joy put in there, she's been knitting for more than 40 years and she's still learning something new. And this is what I think is so great about the classes, because even if you feel like you know how to do XYZ, someone else says it in a different way and it's like light bulb goes off in your head, or even just something small like the dental floss thing. I was like that, because to me a lifeline is like a nightmare. Like to me, because of course I'm always putting it in after I screwed something up, so I have to go, and it's just but that whole dental floss thing, I was like, oh my God, that is like the best thing ever. And then even I taught myself how to do cables, because I wanted to, and it's a whole Brian Beck last year story, but I wanted to make a cabled sweater, and I became obsessed with what cabled sweater I was going to learn or whatever. And of course I picked like the cabliest of cabled sweaters. Like it's, oh my God, it's so much. It's in timeout right now because the armholes are steeked. I didn't even know that was a thing. I'm just like, oh, and it's so many cables. It takes me an hour to go around once, because it's just so many cables. And for maybe a seasoned cable knitter, that would not be a problem. But for me, it's definitely a problem. But then Melissa Liebman was on and she taught a cables class, and I was like, oh my God. And then somebody on Instagram posted something about highlighting the cables. Like, so if you are holding your cable needle in front, highlight it pink. If it's in back, highlight it blue. Game changer. Game changer. Like, why didn't I think of this?
Yeah.
So we're all in this together, right? So it's so great that when somebody posts just the littlest thing, oh, highlight it pink, highlight it blue. I spent half my time looking at the dumb pattern to see, do I hold it in front? Do I hold it in back? Because I didn't have that muscle memory of what to do.
Yeah.
And I just love stuff like that. Love it.
Yeah. So much of it is repetition, and so much of it is just that shared knowledge. Somebody else knows something, and it's not always to do with how long we've been knitting or how good of a knitter we are. It's just, hey, well, I picked this up, and I know it, and the next person might not.
Yeah. So I went through, let me see it here. Yeah, you can see
you're gone. No.
I'm gone.
We just see your background.
I have the virtual. Oh, I can't do it.
Yeah.
It won't show, but it's all the highlighted. I wonder why it won't.
Oh, now
there it is.
As long as your face is showing, we can see it. Yeah.
There it is.
There we go.
So I highlighted it all, and that's the sweater.
Mm-hmm.
It is the cabliest of all the
Yeah.
sweaters.
I
And
find
I screwed up a part. I'm like, that'll be like on my butt. I don't care. It's staying.
one thing I like to do sometimes with the highlighters, especially if I've got any traveling stitches, things that might cross between cables, is I like to actually highlight those stitches all the way down the pattern wherever they go. And
That's a
even
good
if
idea.
that's something where, okay, they're crossing and then they're crossing, are they crossing this way? Or are they crossing this way? I highlight the front stitches.
That's a really good idea.
I
See,
can then, that's how my mind works. That
Yeah.
helps me to see it. And then I can look at my knitting and see, right, the front stitches are going to the left and now they're coming down, they're going to the right, or are they going behind now?
Yeah, no, that's really good.
Yeah. Mary asked what scarf I'm wearing.
Yes.
Mary, this is a shawl called Black to the Fuchsia by Casapinka. Black to the Fuchsia.
Can you hold it up a little bit more?
Sure, it's
pretty.
Asymmetrical, a lot of garter. It's pretty easy, just with a mini skein set from a few years old.
It's cute.
When those mini skeins were super popular. So speaking of techniques and things, I am going to share a technique. I like to always demonstrate a technique every time we do one of these. So Christine, I'm going to take you off spotlight and I'm going to change my camera setting.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I'm going to just swap to my other camera so I can show you guys a technique. I promised something interesting by way of a 2-color cast on that I think is kind of fun and easy. And I hope you guys will too. If you want to do this along with me, you would want to get 2 colors of yarn, but probably I imagine most of you are just going to want to watch this, and then the recording's going to be up on YouTube Live on my YouTube channel later, so you can find that later and rewatch it. I'm going to just post the links in the chat to my YouTube channel and my website and Peacetree Fiber and Yoga Adventures. All those links are now live in the chat for you guys. All right, so I've got 2 different colors of yarn, and I like to use something really contrasty so you can see the 2 colors here. We're just going to start with a slip knot. This slip knot is going to go away at the end, so it doesn't have to look the least bit pretty. But I made the slip knot with both colors. That's important. If you're familiar with the cable cast on, this is going to look a lot like the cable cast on with one key point of difference. All right, I'm going to put my right needle through the 2 stitches like I would for the cable cast on, and I'll grab the first yarn. I'll take the dark so that we're alternating, even though I'm going to get rid of the first 2 loops and the slip knot there. All right, so when I bring that through, normally with the cable cast on, we would go this way. I'm actually going to put it on this way, which some people might describe as twisted. It's backwards from the way we put it on for the cable cast on. See how our focus is. Hopefully that's a little bit better focused. So I'm just going to do that again. Okay, going between the 2 stitches with my right needle, wrapping as you do standard for cable cast on. And when I mount it onto the left needle, I'm doing that in a way that one would describe as being mismounted or twisted for a standard cast on. And it looks like this. It looks very open. And that's key. We want that. And then I'm going to go back in between my last 2 stitches. I'm going to pick up the other color of yarn. And here's the other part that matters. I'm going to bring the yarn, when I pick it up, I need to pick it up toward me and cross in front of the hanging opposite yarn, so that those are actually crossing each other. And now I'll just make my stitch, bring it through, and again, when I put it on the needle, I'm putting it on the way that leaves this looking open. And I'll make my next stitch. Again, I'm drawing my opposite color yarn toward me across the other yarn that's hanging before I make that next stitch. If you don't do any of those steps, or you put this stitch on facing the other direction, you'll still get a cast on. You just won't get the same effect. It won't look as cool as this. I go in again, pick up the light yarn, cross it toward me in front of the dark, make my stitch, draw it through and on. I'm just going to do a few more of these so you can see what it looks like when I'm done. Remember, every time I grab the new yarn, I'm bringing it toward me and twisting it over the other hanging yarn.
In what instances, Amy, do you use this? Would you find the most, would you say?
You know, it's just one of those fun things. I might do it in a pattern where I have a 2-color corrugated ribbing if on the edge. I might use it in brioche. It would depend on what I'm doing with the sides. Whether if I'm doing a 1-color selvage on brioche, I would not tend to do that. But if I wanted to do a 2-color selvage on brioche, this gives you a bottom edge that's going to be also alternating colors, just like you can on a 2-color brioche selvage. Or you might even do it on a 1-color project where you just want this pop of color to be different. I would think about color work mittens would be a place that I would just love to have this fun kind of cast on. So here I go at the end. This is what I've got.
Neat.
So it looks almost like a chain crocheted cast on. And you've got the 2 colors.
It almost looks like a Latvian braid, but on the edge.
It does. It really resembles Latvian braid. And that's why I would think of this for colorwork mittens, because I love Latvian braid and mittens and things like that. But it's, of course, where a Latvian braid would lay flat on your knitting. This will be sort of, it's in a different dimension.
Mm-hmm.
So
it looked a little braidy while you were doing it.
Yeah, it does. And that's, the important part about twisting each color this way when you go to pick up the next color is always crossing them this way. It's almost like fun,
like a float, almost carrying it up a little bit.
Yeah. So it's just a fun little trick. It's not that hard to do. And if you want to pull that out sometime and add it to something, give it a fancy edge. This would actually be really fun on a colorwork hat as well. But you do have to, of course, be a little bit careful. This is stretchy, but it's not as stretchy as, say a tubular cast on would be. So be a little bit careful of your tension there. It's much stretchier than the cable cast on because of the way we put it onto the needle right here. So I'm going to change cameras now. All right, so I just thought that would be a fun thing for you guys. And I appreciate some of the other questions that you guys submitted. That's always fun to really see what you want to learn about. Some of the things that you asked about are techniques that I already have some videos for on my YouTube channel. I've been trying to put just short, maybe 2-3 minute videos on my YouTube channel, which I put in the chat so that you can have, if you just want to know, how do I do an I-cord cast on just really quick? I try to keep them centered on just that one technique. So there are some things that you can learn there. One or two people asked about brioche, and that's more than the scope that we would address in the minutes that we have here. But I do have some more brioche classes and things coming up. So if you're interested in that, take a look on my website. I do have additional classes coming up, and I'm adding more classes all the time. I've just set up some additional ones in March that are through a couple of different yarn shops, and I don't have them up there yet, but I'll have them up there probably by next week. So it's always good to check back. Or if you don't want to check back, you can go to my website and sign up for my email, and you'll get notifications whenever I add new classes there. So there was one other question that was a technique question someone asked, and I will address that. Someone asked about why do we seam up things at the tops of sweaters when we're just going to pick up stitches again? And we're talking about seaming up neckbands, and wouldn't it just be better to keep knitting? Or seaming up the shoulders, when couldn't you just keep it live and graft them, or do a 3-needle bind off and things like that? Or one of the classic ones is you bind off at the top of a sweater and then you pick up again and knit a hood up from there. The answer for most of those is that those seams are generally structural, that we bind off and pick up again at places that we need strength. So what was actually being asked of me is, can't I just leave them live and keep knitting? Sometimes, but usually not. I think this comes back to understanding the purpose behind the instructions and understanding the structure behind our knitting. If we have the shoulder of a sweater and we graft it and we use Kitchener and we have live stitches and we just Kitchener them all together and we don't have a seam here, most knit sweaters are on the weighty side. They have a little bit of heft to them, and those are going to stretch, and they're going to stretch not just front and back, they're going to stretch down your arm because we don't have the stability of a seam that is a specific size that keeps the shoulder seam on your shoulder. And if you don't have a seam there, that sweater is going to stretch over time, and what's going to happen as it stretches down your shoulder is your sleeves are going to get longer and longer. So sweaters that are seamless do tend to grow over time. Now, designers that design for that and do top-down sweaters, generally those designers, if they're doing a good job, they're putting structure in to counteract that. But when we take something that is a seamed sweater and we convert it, if we're not already conversant in the way that knitted fabric behaves, we might do things that mess with the integrity of our fabric and don't allow things to hang right or hold together in the way that sweaters should. So I hope that's useful. And I'd like to invite everybody for the last 10 minutes or so to unmute yourself and join the conversation. We can ask some more questions, or if we don't have questions, I'd love to see what you're knitting on.
Hi, Amy.
Hi.
So if you've gone ahead and made your shoulder seams with grafting because you thought you knew better, or your neckline because you thought you knew better, just save yourself that work. You can fix it.
Yes,
If you just slip stitch crochet along that edge to give it that stability. You don't have to rip the whole thing apart and redo it. You just don't.
Absolutely. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you. That's such a great tip. And
just
it's
always thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. And it works not only in the tops of shoulders, but if you've converted a sweater to the round and it's biasing or twisting around your body, same thing. Just do a line of single crochet chain down where a seam would go, and that stabilizes it and helps hold it in place.
Would you do that on the inside or on the outside?
Inside. On the
Depends
inside.
on if you want it to show, right?
Right. If you want the design element, sure.
Yeah. I would do it on the inside, and I would do it and try to make it invisible.
I have a question for you about virtual teaching. Have you noticed that, are you getting more new knitters, like knitters that have never knitted before in your classes?
Is this a question for me or for Christine?
Well, either one of you. Because I belong to a lace guild, and we're finding that we're getting more people that are new bobbin lace makers coming online and actually learning how to do bobbin laces, and our membership has grown. So I was just curious if knitting community is in the same situation.
For me, I have not had any, for the classes that I give, I have not had any brand new knitters that are with the instructors that I hire. I personally have taught, which is interesting, but I personally have taught some beginning knitting classes for free at a local store here in Buffalo, and I did it online, and I was happy to do it, and I had brand spanking new people. And so that was cool. That was fun. I did it when it was easier to do it in person, but I didn't think the virtual was horrible. And I had like 25 people in one of the virtual classes for brand spanking new knitter. Wow. So I just told them what like to buy or what to have available. And, you know, we just went through the very basics, and it was neat. I think people are wanting to learn being in the house, you know? What do you think, Amy?
You know, I don't tend to teach classes online for brand new knitters because most of the places that I'm teaching, there's festivals or things where established knitters are coming. So I'm trying to teach the next thing, the next step for them. But from what I'm hearing, I do think more people are picking up the craft in quarantine. They're looking for other things to do with themselves. And yeah, I think the knitting community in general is growing. Mm-hmm. I did teach a new knitter, actually. It was my adult son's girlfriend wound up joining our household sort of midway through the pandemic, and she was a crocheter, and I asked her if she wanted to learn to knit. So now she's a knitter too.
Yay!
That's great.
I'll tell you what, she makes my jaw drop because I taught her 1 week, and the next week she came to show me the pair of socks she was making.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah.
Good for her.
Yeah.
I taught my friend Josephine, who had never knitted, and she came to one of my classes, and I've known her forever, and she was one of my bridesmaids and that sort of stuff. And she keeps sending me pictures of the things she's making. Like she's doing like an asymmetrical shawl. I'm like, you've known how to knit for like 5 minutes, you know, but I think that, honest to God, this is going to sound crazy, but I didn't know a lot about cast-ons and stuff like that. And one of the first classes I took at a retreat was a cast-on class. And it was all like traditional cast-ons. Beth Brown Reinzel taught it and whatever. And I learned that I can cast on like it's my job. Like I can do it. I can do it right away. And I think it's because years and years ago, I was a hairdresser. And I have excellent finger dexterity and excellent ability to braid and understand those sorts of things. And I think that was why. And Josephine's a hairdresser, and she picked it up like crazy. Hairstylist, whatever we're calling it now. But I was that.
An interesting question, because I think it's a lot harder to teach the bobbin lace because you have to show your work where knitters can hold it up. But it still would be a very big job of trying to do it online, you know, to try to teach them. And I was just curious if any of you guys have done that.
It's amazing that you're getting so many new people, though.
Yes, it is. We actually had an Uncon convention right after it hit. We have our convention in the summer, and these ladies, they found about 10 weeks they put this thing together, and we had a banquet, we had a showroom, we had vendors, and we didn't have any classes. This year we're having classes, so it's kind of cool what is coming out of it. But for classes, you have to have two things in our to be a student. You have to have a camera, like a iPad or something that you can see the instructor, and then you have to have something that holds up like a camera or a camcorder or something that's over your work so they can actually see what you're doing.
Right.
So,
yeah.
But for bobbin lace, that's required. But I don't think knitting is quite as, I think it's easier if you can still do it with one.
Yes, you can hold it up to the, you know, like where my hands are would be closer to, you know, so people can see it.
You can't hold up a pillow with the bobbins hanging down there.
I have had a class where someone was really stuck and I had her turn her laptop away around so she couldn't see the camera and hold her knitting in front of her so that I could see it the right way around, because when it was turned the other way, I couldn't see what was going wrong. And and after a few turns of, okay, a little bit higher, now go to the left, no, the other left, and okay, there it is, I see it, great, now we know it's wrong, now I know what to tell you to do.
Yeah.
You just have to get creative, right?
I do have a friend that's teaching jewelry making online, but she was teaching them how to do bobbin lace to put in their jewelry. And half her class, none of them knew how to do bobbin lace at all. And so she would have to teach them, no, twist the other way, but yeah. She said it was so manageable and that people were just so impressed. And if you could have an item that people are interested in doing, people are willing to learn and are looking for things to learn. So
I would believe that. What's everybody got on the needles today?
I'm knitting a lacy beaded, it's gonna be a shawl wrap thing. It's called Tansy from Louisa Harding's book. So I cast on yesterday, and now of course I'm obsessed, and I don't know. See how far I get today.
Beading can get to be addictive, and I absolutely love the weight of beads on the edge of a shawl.
Mm-hmm. It's not the best pattern to be working on while I'm trying to pay attention to the conversation, because I do have to look at it, or I've already made several mistakes that I've had to tink back, but it was either this or the socks I was working on. So I picked this because I want to work on it. So.
I'm making a pair of socks, or the second sock.
Oh, those look nice.
Yarn, and I've never made a tomato heel, and this is a tomato heel. And
I've never done a tomato heel.
It's kind of interesting because you don't develop as many holes, and you're just doing 3 wedges of short rows, and it
cool.
So
it's Kat Bordy, isn't it?
Huh?
Kat Bordy wasn't.
Yeah, that was her name, and yeah. They're sort of honoring her this year with their club, and I had never even heard of a tomato heel until I got to it, and I actually tried the sock on, and it feels really nice. The only thing is that I didn't know how to measure if I was going to have a long enough foot or long enough, because I didn't know how much the heel was going to take up, so I just did it the way they said to do it and didn't add anything, and it's fine. It worked out fine.
Great. Making a note of that.
Yeah, that was big loss to the knitting world last year when we lost Kat Bordy.
Yes.
You, Christine, you were saying that you learned the thing with the dental floss, but I took a class at Stitches in Pasadena. I'm from California, and one of my friends goes, "Why are you taking a beading class? You know already how to do it." But you never know. There's always that one thing that you can learn from a class, even if you know how to do something. There's always something else you don't know.
I absolutely, and I have my it's not going to show because I have I have the dental floss lifeline. You can see the dental floss right here in this sweater because I goofed it, or I don't know what I did, but I wanted to cry.
It's a beautiful sweater, by the way.
That's a gorgeous sweater.
That's Thank you. I'm doing this sleeve. It's a Birkin.
Yeah,
it's a Birkin, and I got the Susan Anderson, the Barrett Woolco yarn. So I was coveting this sweater for like a super long time. Like it just caught my eye and I wanted to make it. And Susan would get these kits and they'd be sold out in like 5 seconds. So over the summer, I spied it and I'm like, you know what? I'm treating myself to that. And I am getting it.
Do you know she teaches too? So if you're looking for teachers, she's wonderful. I met her at a Lantern Moon retreat.
Oh, I'm sure she would be amazing. And I've been making a whole bunch of her little animals. They're the cutest things in the world for little baby gifts. I made 3 this year I made a giraffe, 2 bunnies, and an owl for all people I knew that had babies.
Nice.
So cute. So yeah, the dental floss anyways is right in this sweater, and I'm leaving it there for now just because I'm so amazed by it. So.
And I see in the chat, Michelle B said she's making socks also.
I'm making socks too.
Hey,
I'm Michelle B. I'm Michelle B also.
Oh, look at
Michelle
that.
B's.
And here's mine.
Oh, everyone's doing
Oh,
socks.
wow.
Socks.
Look at that.
Oh, wait,
I
you want
love
to hear?
those.
Well, this one I'm not too far on yet.
Susan, is that yarn? Are you doing color work or is that self-striping?
I did it all myself. No, it's magic. It's magic yarn. Yeah.
Love it.
But
that's the socks I have on my feet right now
really
too.
Impressive though, doesn't it? If
It
you
does. I have. Well, I'm
it.
taking this off my foot, but these that were the I have pajamas on the bottom, just so everybody knows. So
well, we all do.
I know. These were the Arnie and Carlos, like what the heck was the name of them? Where you just knit till it turned solid color.
Yes.
And then you did the heel, and then you knit till
Perfect.
the solid color again.
So
Yes,
Reggie
perfect.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yes, love that.
I heard, I was in a knitting group earlier in the week with someone from England who was doing it, and they turned out all wrong. And we talked, we're like, well, did you pull from the wrong end? You know, because it's made to only do from, I forget whether it's the
You have
inside.
to start
or
at
the
the cup,
really
I think.
careful. Yeah. But I don't know. She was having, she wound up with two very not matching socks. I don't know what happened.
Oh.
You really have to follow the instructions on those.
I like
Nobody
to make
socks match these days.
socks, but I don't know if I'm making a sweater or a sock. My sock.
Oh my!
And when you get done, you have 254 stitches, and somehow this turns into the sock. I think this is the heel, and then you have the top and the bottom, but I'm not sure how it works yet. And thank goodness I'm only making one at a time, because it's a lot of work if it doesn't work.
Well, it sounds like it's one of those, maybe it's one of those origami things, you know, like, anybody made the baby surprise sweater, and then you have this weird thing, and then you do what it says, and suddenly it's a sweater, and you don't know you never knew what part you were knitting until it's finished?
Yes, I made one of those. I don't know if it was called that.
I'll be finished with it, and I can show you how it came out. But
yeah,
I'd love to see it.
Wonderful.
So I want to show you this sock that I'm working on. It's not my sock, but it's a labor of love for somebody else, and it's that self-striping or self-patterning yarn, and it belongs to the brother of a friend. And last year his wife passed away. She knit the socks for him. Later last year he lost his house in the wildfires in the canyon, Santiam Canyon, and so he was in the hospital for a long time. He was terribly burned, and then he is now living with his sister, who is a friend of mine, until he is better. So she's helping with the recovery and everything. But he had the socks with him. I don't know how he saved them. Maybe he wore them or whatever. But the heel was blown out, completely blown out. And so there's this giant hole in the heel, and I have picked up along here and knitted a flap and attached it on each side, every other row, with SSK and Knit 2 together. And then I don't like to Kitchener, but I Kitchenered the patch onto it, and I put my foot in it. It's going to be great. I'm so happy that I could do this for him.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that.
Michelle, I love getting to see that finished, because I think I saw it earlier this week, either on your blog or on Instagram.
Probably both. And
Yeah.
there was a big hole in it. And so when I turned my camera off earlier, I was taking pictures of it before the light went away. But I was crawling around on the floor, and I didn't want you to see me crawling around on the floor. So a blog post is coming with lots of pictures.
Oh, I love that.
Wonderful. Well, you guys, thank you all so much for being here tonight. This was so much fun. I really enjoyed the heck out of all the conversations. And Christine, thank you so much.
Thank you. I love seeing with everybody. Thank you. I hope to see you again.
Lots of fun. Thank you, everybody who joined us. And I'm here on YouTube Live the first Friday of every month, 4 Pacific, 7 Eastern, and you can find me all over social media, as you know, and maybe teaching at a virtual festival near you, hopefully. If you like the Knitcast, you can give us a thumbs up or hit subscribe. That helps us out. And good night, everybody, and good knitting.
All right.
Thank you, everyone. We'll see you, Joy. We'll see you next week.